The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Well, the conference is over now. The talking is finished. Well, mostly it's finished. We have to progress, otherwise we will regress, says the Chief Minister. Did you go to the conference? Have you got any thoughts? What's on your mind today? We're open line. Remember, tomorrow it's all about enterprise and business with Tim Johnston, MHK, and Mark Lewin from the Department for Enterprise. Jill dropped me a note. We were talking about shingles over the past few days. Jill said, I've had shingles 3 times. And 963 said, I had the shingles vaccine at least 10 years ago. It was recommended if you've a suppressed immune system or elderly. It's nothing new. It's been around for donkey's years. Why are people waiting till the last minute and wanting it now? They probably had decades to get it, says Joe. And a note from Mrs. P. Hello, Mrs. P. I've had shingles 4 times. 4 times. You poor thing. Most recently, last year, I've not been offered a vaccine due to taking immunosuppressants as the vaccine was live. The new vaccine is a double dose, which is offered, if you're lucky, at 70. I'm still waiting for mine. A friend had their first vaccine in May and had a bad reaction, so refused the second dose. October is the time for flu and COVID boosters, so maybe Maxcare have got a job to include the shingles vaccine too, says Mrs. P. There certainly is some around at the moment, and of course I would counsel you to see your medical professional before you do anything. Wilf's with us now. Hi, Wilf.
Hi. I was reading in the Examiner about there was an article about the Crogga Gas field.
Yeah.
And it's just to condense it down. It said they wanted an extension for more time, but maybe before making a start, more time from the government.
Yeah.
Anyway, it says that they also they want to restart a fund for raising money for the estimated 32 million. 0.5 million to drill the first borehole.
Well, I hope they don't ask me.
Well, they are asking you. You see, because it said they would like to see Manx residents invest money in Crogga. So I thought this was a big firm and they had loads of money, but it seems like they want to, I don't know, they're going begging again now.
Well, I understand that last year, when it all kind of hit the buffers, they sent the money back to their investors, although they didn't say how much it was and how many investors. But as you say, they want £32.5 million, a third of it to come from Manx residents. So that's £10 million. Well, I mean, there's some millionaires around who could take that out of their back pocket. But I mean, whether or not they mean everybody or just a few.
Well, it won't be any of mine, put it that way, and I'm not a millionaire. Let the millionaires go in for it if they want to. But I don't think it's a very good idea. Anyway, there's something else. What was it now? There was a report in the paper, in the Courier, that a lot of small fish being washed up on Ramsey Beach. Now, it doesn't say which beach, South Beach or North Beach, I don't know. But that, and it says it's natural occurrence. Well, it is a natural occurrence. I've seen it many times in the past. I've actually walked along the beach and seen baby heron jumping out of the water onto the dry beach to escape from the mackerel.
Oh, I see. So they're being chased by predators.
They're being chased in, and they take the thing. They get out of the water. I've seen all this thing, but I have seen it. When I was a kid, I've seen it from the stone pier to the iron pier, what I call our beach, 4 inches thick. The whole beach tied out with sand eels, dead sand eels.
4 inches thick?
4 inches thick when I was a kid.
And what caused
Walking
that?
up to your ankles in it. Well, presumably, again, more mackerel, a big shoal of mackerel, big shoal of whatever, maybe seals, I don't know. Pushed them all in, and they ended up dead on the beach. I mean, it's true. It's not if I'm getting struck by lightning. It's true. I have seen this, and it took weeks before it all disappeared. You can forget going fishing, because fish would come in and just gobble these things up, and the gulls are that fat they had to walk home. You know what I mean? But I also seen not that long ago on the North Beach, our North Beach, and north side of the sewer, thousands of sand eels dead. None on the south side of the sewer, so it must have been emptying. And obviously, they were poisoned because the gulls would just stand looking at them. They wouldn't touch them. So there's something going on there. Anyway.
So tell me, the situation with the sewer at the moment is that it's going out as grey water. Is that right?
It's grey water, which means there's no chemicals taken out, and the actual, when it starts to smell at the up at the sewer works, then they actually pour more chemicals in to make it smell nice on the beach, because it's running 24 hours a day, tide in, tide out, tide going north, tide going south. It's running all the time.
So just tell me, what's the normal drift? Is it normally to the north or normally to the south?
Well, as strange as it may seem, it runs 6 hours 6 hours south when it's coming in and 8 hours north when it's going out, which seems very strange, but it goes round in a circle. And the stronger run, of course, is going out north. So
I've still not found anybody, Wolf, who's eating eel at the moment.
Well, I have seen many years ago. We used to catch them in the harbour just for fun when we were catching coalfish. But we used to catch an eel now and again just for fun. But there's a run, I've forgotten what time, it must have been the summertime when we were fishing them. There's a run when they come down from the river. These are river eels not going in, but going out.
Right.
When they're heading for the Sargasso Sea, catching that. And I have seen an old fella many years ago with a rowing boat tied to the swing bridge so he wouldn't drift away, and he was catching them, and presumably taking, because all the bottom of the boat was full of eels. And the way he was doing it, I've done this myself just to see it work. They've got back-facing teeth, you see.
Yeah.
When they get hold of something, it's hard for that thing to escape.
I bet.
So, and he had a fish head in a sock, in a woolen sock, and dumped over the side. And the eel comes along, sinks his teeth into the sock, and he just pulls them aboard, gives them a shake, and they fall off. They had the teeth caught; they couldn't get away. Sounds strange, but that's the way. He didn't need a hook, and he had the bottom of the boat full of eels. So they must be. He probably somebody come from across from London or something like that, where they did this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then he started doing it himself here, I would think.
Okay. All right. That's the future then. A fish's head in a sock.
Yeah. A fish head in a sock.
All right. Okay.
Very simple.
All right. Thanks, Wilf. Good to hear from you.
All right.
Thanks for being with us. It's 12:15 now. Chris is on now. It's former MHK Chris Robertshaw. Am I right, Chris?
You are correct. Guilty as charged, yeah. Just a couple of quick points to perhaps enlighten this misunderstanding over what Crogga has said. 2 points. Crogga didn't ask for the extension. DOI applied the extension because they simply have not yet come to a conclusion over whether they will allow the appraisal well to occur first. And this is despite the fact that their own advisors, that's the DOI advisors, have told them that Crogga is absolutely correct in wanting the appraisal well first. So It's not Crogga holding back, it's DOI. The second point about the local investors, I understand that there might be misunderstandings here, but the fact of the matter is that the Crogga gas field is a Manx asset. And one can, Crogga, I know, because I know the board. The board have thought about this very carefully. If it transpires that the exploratory well is successful, it means that the people of the Isle of Man are going to be able to realise a really important asset. And at that stage, if the local people were never offered the opportunity to become shareholders, then there would be, quite understandably, criticism levelled at the board. So the board have said simply that it's the opportunity for local people to be investors is there if they wish it. The fact of the matter is, it's obviously the case that the investments will come from the financial institutions. It shouldn't be seen in any shape or form as a dependency upon local people investing or not. So I hope that helps you a little bit.
It does. If you could just enlighten us any more, Chris, most people in the general public are asking, why has this taken so long to come to a conclusion?
Well, if you've got 4 or 5 hours, I could tell you. But I did actually put a little bit of information on Manx forums over the last couple of days because there's an awful lot of misunderstandings flying around. Can we capture it in one phrase, though, a long conversation in one phrase, and that is DOI are hesitant and uncertain and simply will not make a decision, and they need to make a decision. And the advice that they've received from their professional advisors is that the appraisal well should go ahead. So the matter isn't with Crogga. Crogga has got all its professionals and its operators lined up. But just look at it from this perspective for a second. Crogga cannot move forward until the Isle of Man government have applied very high quality international regulations. And they've had since 2018 to do this, and they still have not done it. So it's a failing on the part of DOI on 2 counts. One, that they haven't yet produced the regulations necessary for Crogga to go ahead. And 2, despite what their own advisors say, they're not permitting Crogga to move the appraisal well first. All international financiers fully understand that the appropriate way forward is the appraisal well happens first and then the 3D seismic. The whole matter lies with DOI, and they really must start making decisions as a matter of urgency.
At the end of this, we've been told there are telephone numbers in terms of revenues for the Isle of Man. So, I mean, what's the feeling of the people inside Crogga? I mean, how do they feel about this? If there's potentially, they're talking about 5.3 billion pounds. I mean, they must be hellishly frustrated.
Well, for people like me, as an ex-MHK who's watching the financial situation of the Isle of Man slowly deteriorate and recognising that here's a wonderful opportunity for the Isle of Man to achieve real value out of its own asset, and it's failing to reach out and grasp that opportunity. I think it's beyond frustrating. It's just an extraordinary situation, and it really needs to be brought to a head, frankly, one way or the other, because things can't go on. But just out of interest, there's been a lot of understandable talk in recent days about the the exploding cost of health. The annual income from Crogga, should the gas release at a commercial rate, will be sufficient to pay for our health service. And that alone would allow the government to think again and sort itself out and start living within its budget. But the current situation is completely untenable, extremely frustrating, and deeply, deeply disappointing.
Okay.
It should be for everybody.
I'll just say, I mean, as full disclosure, are you speaking as an interested bystander or an investor or what?
No, I was one of the early shareholders, and I've always made it clear in public that that's what I am. And I invested, and it's risk capital because it's a 50-50 chance of success. I invested as a supporter of the principle that the Isle of Man needs to get this gas out, and everybody would gain by it. But no, there's no secret at all.
Okay, all right.
I am a shareholder. Okay.
Happy to put that straight. Thanks, Chris. Good to hear from you. It's
nice to talk to you. Thanks.
You two, 22 minutes past 12. Juan's on now. Hi, Juan.
Andy, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. And what a lovely day it is.
Oh, absolutely gorgeous. You know, Peel was alive the other night. People were still swimming in the sea when the sun had gone down. It was sunset. It was a glorious evening in Peel, absolutely magical. And going on to magical, we were at the government conference for the last 2 days. Absolutely magical. Where do I start with this one? I think Alf Cannon's opening speech, I think, said it all there. He was contemplating a walk along the golf course, but with the current political landscape, he thought it best interest not to go across the golf course. But the new tactical armed response unit were around and walking through the hotel, obviously to guard him against any Trump assassins.
I mean, genuinely, were there armed police there?
Yes, there was. And I don't know what the message was that came out. I'm sure Jane Poole-Wilson can tell us what the message was, but quite clearly they have a significant badge on the side of their jackets, which I couldn't make out from the photographs that I got from Port Erin the other week in Port St Mary. But yes, their presence was there quite clearly, came right through the centre of the reception. So I don't know what message came out of that, Andy, but it's just there. So, I mean, 2 days, listening to, Claire Barber and a biodiversity speech. We're going to be living in Shangri-La in the next 5 years, and, the beautiful Isle of Man with all its fineries and biodiversity. But, the normal culprits were all involved in the conversation, which was compliance, controls, pathway, journey. Grounding, that was a new one. I took that on board while I was grinding my teeth listening to some of the stuff. So we're talking about travel and connectivity and listening to Gary Cobb and the ATCs. A lot of blame was being put on people on social media with criticising ATCs. And I generally think that people are not criticising ATCs per se. They're criticising what's happening with the job.
I've never heard any particular ATC, I've never heard anybody say it's the ATC's fault. Never.
Yeah. Exactly my point. And the emphasis seemed to be put on through Gary Cobb and Brian Thompson that emphasis was being given to individuals, and this was making people not want to work extra hours. And I don't think, like you said, Andy, that anyone is getting it at the people who are doing their job. It's the circumstances around the job. I managed to get a 30-minute conversation with Brian Thompson afterwards. In actual fact, I did have my hand up a few times, but James didn't see me there. Stevie Wonder in America see me, but James didn't. But I managed to get a 30 minutes with Brian Thompson, and I did manage to say to Brian, we had got quite an interesting conversation, but the unwashed off the social media and the people who he didn't really feel fit to comment on, I said to him, really, this is where your problem comes in, because transparency is the problem here. If you want to say something to people, whether it's the person who's going to shop in Primark or someone who's going away and spending £600 taking their camper van away, you need to answer the questions. Don't treat them people as like that's a stupid question, a stupid remark, because this is where people build up the hatred and animosity of what's going on. And they need to be transparent and answer more questions so the people feel trapped with what's happening. And the airport, moving on a little bit from that, but attached to it is the island safety plan. And again, Jane Poole-Wilson came out with a lot of scripture about people trafficking, drugs, and as I pointed out on the microphone to her, drugs is not a new problem here. They were making out that this is a problem that they have to put new controls in and new compliances in at the ports. And as I said 2 months ago, the constabulary are taking over the harbour control, which they announced yesterday, in actual fact. But they were making out that we have a relevant drugs problem now. The problem with drugs has been here a long time. They chose to hide their head in about it many years ago. That problem is here. The problem that I have here, and some people are not going to see it as a problem, but we have APN, auto recognition cameras, which they want to put in, but also facial recognition, which they want to introduce at the ports. And following on from that, the talk about travel passports, and also in among the conversation, I had to go back and pick the bones out of it. There will be no cash payments for travel anymore. And I had to go back and ask Jane Poole Wilson specifically, is that what she meant? And yes, that's kind of what they meant. Obviously, to safeguard ourselves from any terrorist attacks and people coming in here.
And is that the same both ends? I mean, anybody, so nobody can stroll up to the Liverpool landing stage or to Belfast or Dublin or Heysham and buy a ticket cash?
Well, I mean, as far as I can ascertain, this is for the steam packet per se. So I'm sure Head of News can chase that up, and I'm sure she's got a good contact within Home Affairs and stuff that she'd be able to follow that up with. But is the question here? And some people are going to say, why would anyone be bothered about facial recognition? But as I said, this is not something that's been thought out by our government. I mean, I had 3 videos sent to me last week from cities within England, all prominently putting massive big facial recognition vans in street centres, in city centres, with 12 or 15 police officers around, all linked into these cameras, stopping and pulling up people. So, like I said to Jane, you're not. This is not new to the Isle of Man. You are just following an English agenda, which is what they're doing with a lot of stuff. So along with the AI and everything else that they think is a shiny way forward for the Isle of Man, I just wonder whether the looking forward to looking back strapline is really is non-existent anymore with what they feel their way going forward. The Orsted presentation was not open to debate from the floor. Mr. Galloway done his presentation, as did Deborah Heather for tourism, and no debate was put up from the floor. There was no roving microphone on that, which I found interesting, especially now with what Chris Robertshaw has just said about Crogga. I would suggest that maybe, and we know AG's office is very busy writing policy at the moment concerning the Orsted presentation. So I would suggest that this has a lot to do with this whole net zero that they're following, which is going to cost us a fortune. And I agree with Chris Robertshaw's sentiments. I just feel that at the moment this government Comyn has an agenda of its own here, and they're not sharing it with the people.
Okay, we appreciate that. Thanks, June. Good to hear from you. Take care,
Andy.
All right, it's 12:30 on Manx Radio, and we got Bonzo's on there. Hi, Bonzo.
Hi there, yes. Yes, well, congratulations to June for spending 2 days at the Isle of Man Government Conference, without having an aneurysm or nervous breakdown. I must admit, I probably would have by the end of the morning. The first day, so big up and respect to him for that one. However, when it comes to a variety of things about that, I don't agree with June, obviously, on some things. And last point first, and of course, point amplified by various others, and Mr. Robert Shaw. Crogga. This marvellous, wonderful unicorn that is going to give us loads and loads of money. Well, BP didn't think that. And other people I know in the oil and gas industry who've seen that don't think that at all. And even if the magical unicorn actually appeared and started emanating £20 notes, all right, at the predicted level that Crogga seemed to think, because, of course, the government, their figure of 2.8, I think it was, billion, half of the 5.3 billion that Crogga had been going around pushing. But if that be the case, I find Chris Robertshaw's naivety breathtaking. Well, it's either naivety or he's just not saying it for his own purposes and for Crogga's purposes. Because does anyone in their right mind think for 1 second that if we had that sort of revenue, the UK would allow us to keep it? They would either, A, find a way to actually take much of that revenue for themselves, or B, they would dock us pound for pound from FERSA for it. So we would end up still not quite as up on the deal. And that's just presuming that there's stuff there. And also, of course, presuming, because Crogga are an exploration company. They're not going to be the people who are pulling the gas up. They're not going to be the people who are selling the gas. They're not going to be the people in any position to offer any discounts or anything like that. That's nonsense. It will be sold to us at market price. Okay. So all these supposed benefits, no, they're just imagining.
Now you mentioned this before. Let me just take you back a second. You mentioned the fact that you think that were this to be a success and were there to be gas extracted from it and fitted, it will be filtered into the Morecambe Bay gas circuit and taken ashore in the UK. You think that the UK would sequestrate revenue from us just like that?
Well, there are various taxation methods that could be used because of the fact that it's hydrocarbons and because of the fact that then hydrocarbons come into FERSA.
Okay, so and this is existing tax strategy, existing tax mechanisms, or would they be new ones?
Well, it might need a certain amount of adjustment here and there, but generally the principle would be that, yes, this is an item that would come under FERSA and we should share it. Or, as I say, if legally they find that impossible, they would just simply fine us pound for pound from what we're supposed to get from FERSA.
But that wouldn't be equitable.
So what, they'd say.
So
no, I mean, we also have the problem that, of course, the person heading up Crogga is somebody who, of course, was found guilty of assisting in sanctions busting to Iran with Statoil, and also is persona non grata with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, which would do our international standing no end of bad to be seen to be doing business with someone like that. And I've said this, of course, on many occasions, and I know that opinion is shared by a variety of Tynwald members as well. So this trying to push through the thing before Tynwald in October about the Maritime Infrastructure Act amendment, which I think is mainly to clear the road for a much easier process to give Crogga consent. I don't think that's going to be met very well. Crogga is, as I say, it's fantasy land, and it's fantasy land that's just been perpetuated and perpetuated for years and years. Orsted, on the other hand, because we own the seabed leasing revenue would come to us, and there would be nothing that UK could do about it. Well, I suppose they could try a one-for-one on FERSA, but that wouldn't be right, because, of course, it isn't within their domain. Whereas, of course, hydrocarbons and FERSA, etc., and taxation regime would or could be seen as their domain.
Okay.
So we'd have that money, and it's guaranteed. You put the pole there, they start. You let them put the pole there, they start paying you money. rather than, let's put some money on, on 33 Red, which is what Crogga is.
Okay, all right. We appreciate it, and thanks for staying in touch with that, Bonzo. We appreciate your insight.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Good to hear from you. It's 24 minutes before 1. Tomorrow, Tim Johnston, MHK, and Mark Lewin are here from Enterprise. The Department for Enterprise Minister, Tim Johnston, and Chief Officer Mark Lewin will be talking about, all aspects, whether it's finance, whether it's Locate Isle of Man, Visit Isle of Man, Digital Isle of Man. They're here talking. And next Tuesday, David Ashford's here, Chair of the Housing and Communities Board. And a week tomorrow, Alfred Cannon, Chief Minister, will be on Mannin Line.
The only radio station that's Manx, and we're proud of it. Celebrating 60 years, this is Manx Radio.
People of the Isle of Man, are you thinking of buying or selling a home? Well, wait! You need to talk to the conveyancing team at LVW Law. LVW Law! They've over 20 years of experience and know what they're talking about. They're friendly and efficient. Do not buy or sell a property without calling LVW Law on 836757 for a no-obligation quote. LVW Law.
Right, I say, when you're looking for the perfect bathroom, get your silly walk over to Pacesetter, where you'll get friendly help and advice on bathrooms that will work for you. From practical, accessible bathrooms for aging users to the ultimate in luxury designs with walk-in showers and wet rooms, with no inquisitions, dead birds or hard sell. You'll always be on the bright side of life when you see the stunning range on display at Pacesetter Tile and Bathroom Studio, Harris Terrace, Douglas, or search online for Pacesetter Douglas.
Ever thought your storage could be more smart, more spacious, more stylish? Discover chic and clever bedroom storage solutions at Lifestyle Furniture. Crafted with care and precision, our range of sliding door and hinged wardrobes is available in a wide choice of sizes and beautiful finishes, all with 0% finance, and we'll deliver and build them for you absolutely free. Find a smarter wardrobe at Lifestyle Furniture, Snugborough Trading Estate and Union Mills. Finance available subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details.
The Isle of Man Festival of Motoring is back this September, and this year we're celebrating the very best of Britain with a huge gathering of British classic and sports cars. Have a ride with the Sporting Bears at Douglas Prom on Saturday the 21st, with all proceeds going to Lukey's Aid charity. Find out more at iomfm.com. Enjoy the best of British with the Isle of Man Festival of Motoring, revving up the island this September.
Coming up, we have another winning weekend here on Manx Radio. And this time, we're giving you the chance to win £200 to spend in-store at B&B Furniture. All you have to do is listen out for a winning question, which we'll ask on air right across the weekend. And once you've heard it, text your answer to 166 177. B&B Furniture is celebrating over 45 years of serving the island with lots of anniversary offers. And to mark 30 years in their purpose-built store, they're offering up to 30% off selected items. Make this your winning weekend with B&B Furniture and your nation station Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
21 minutes before 1, Thursday lunchtime. Chris is back on. You want to clarify something, Chris, is that right?
Well, yes, I do. I mean, Bonzo's very, very opinionated, but I, with great courtesy to him, I do wish he would bother to check his facts before he expostulates on the radio like he does. Number one, Crogga has laid out its financial position very clearly. Bonzo's completely wrong about the arrangements for gas prices on the Isle of Man for the Isle of Man people. Crogga have articulated in its agreements and in its relationship with government that gas prices over the next decade, at least for the people of the Isle of Man, will be very attractive because only 12% of the volume would go to the Isle of Man. The rest would go onto the international market at international prices, which would subsidise the price for people consuming gas on the Isle of Man. He's also not correct about Ørsted. I do wish he'd check his information before he starts giving his opinion so readily. As far as Ørsted is concerned, and I'm not against Ørsted, whether or not that happens will be completely dependent upon what's called a contract for difference. A contract for difference is, as I'm sure you understand, is a way of government subsidising wind farms. And Ørsted will not go ahead unless the UK government agree to subsidise the wind farm in Isle of Man waters. In other words, it's in foreign waters to the UK, and that's a big issue for them. So the idea that the Ørsted monies are they're confident and clear about what it is that the Isle of Man's going to get is not the case at all at this stage. However, Crogga has clearly laid out in public its position, and I think Bonzo needs to start taking account of that. And if he please take the trouble to contact Crogga, ring me if he wants to, and I'll put him on to those who are advising Crogga and who are its contractors. But he really mustn't come on with the sort of nonsense that he just produced there. It won't do.
Okay.
And give me my number, 494-318. I'll put him on, I'll put him right, and then perhaps next time he comes on, he can speak with more knowledge and understanding.
Okay, 494-318. And just one thing, again, Chris, and this is something that comes from the public all the time, is that Crogga, the impression is that it seems too good. It seems like it's all positive for the Isle of Man. And you know, human nature will be, if something sounds too good, it is too good. So is there any downside to Crogga?
The downside is very straightforward. It's a yes or no point when the appraisal well goes in. The Crogga know, because Dr. Richard Hubbard used to be the chief geologist for BP worldwide, and it was him who closed the Crogga field when Lord Brown, I think it was, asked him to rationalise the number of exploratory sites that he was running around the world, which was 23, down to 9, because the USSR had failed, and BP was getting into the huge fields in Kazakhstan, Siberia, wherever the hell it was. And the only reason Richard Hubbard closed down the exploratory work on the gas field on the Isle of Man was it was small by comparison. Now, we know the gas is there. The company knows, knows the gas is there. What it doesn't know is whether it releases from the geological structure at a commercial rate. And all the Isle of Man all the DOI needs to do is say, go ahead with that appraisal well. Let's find out whether the Isle of Man has this value that Crogga's talking about. Very simply, if that appraisal well says no, the gas will not release at the commercial rate, then it's over. And those of us who invested have lost. And anybody else who would invest would also lose at that stage because it is risk capital. However, if it does release at the appropriate rate, then immediately the company would be worth £500 million, and the 3D seismic test thereafter will be the mechanism to establish where the other drill heads should appear. Those drill heads, once drilled, would then be removed because there would be no evidence on the surface of the sea that the gas was being collected and sent as Bonzo said, to one correct thing, that it would be sent to the UK, but it would leave Isle of Man waters as Isle of Man ownership and will be charged at that point. That's where the VAT and corporation tax and goodness knows what all come in, and where the Exchequer would gain to such a huge extent. So the risk is, will it release or not?
Okay.
And that's the whole issue. And Crogga cannot do that unless DOI produce the regulations, and they've been asked since 2018 to produce those regulations, and they haven't yet done it. All the delays are with government, not Crogga. Crogga has a whole list of really professional, high-quality operators all lined up to go, but cannot go until DOI and the government give the green light.
Okay. All right. We appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for clearing that up. And for everybody asking, by the way, FERSA, well, people have been talking about this, the Final Expenditure Revenue Sharing Arrangement. Final Expenditure Revenue Sharing Arrangement. And thanks for that. Let's go to Mark's with us. Hi, Mark.
Yeah. Hi, Andy. It's a similar subject actually, but we were talking before about the the lack of information coming from Ørsted with regards to what's the net benefit to the Isle of Man. And thankfully, I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to this. Julie Edge raised a written question to Tynwald on the 5th of September to the Chief Minister in his capacity, I presume, as chairman of the Energy Policy Board. So, I think that's probably a good thing. I heard Chris talking before about the decisions with the DOI, and I presume that's correct. But Julie's raised the decision to the chairman of the Energy Policy Board, which is the Chief Minister, asking this very question. What is the benefit, the net benefit to the Isle of Man from carbon, Crogga, and what's the net benefit to the Isle of Man for Ørsted? And I'm really I think the reply is due on the 26th of September. So I'm hoping that the Chief Minister, who's front and centre, thankfully, in my opinion, he's put himself front and centre in this, because I think I'm actually for gas and I'm for wind, as long as there's an economic benefit to the Isle of Man. And I think it's bigger than just the DOI. It has to be the Chief Minister, and he has put himself front and centre as the chair of the Energy Policy Board, along with the Treasury Minister, along with the Minister of the DOI, along with the Claire Barber, the Minister of DEFRA. And I think it's also, who else is on the board? I think it's also the chair of the MUA. So they've taken the energy policy strategy, and they're the ones, I think, ultimately going to make the decision. But hopefully we get an answer to this. And I saw Crogga's press release, and I think, in fairness to them, they've been very transparent. I actually went along to the conference yesterday, like June, hoping to get some information from Ørsted. But unfortunately, there was no information at all, and they kept sort of saying, it's a commercial decision. And, if we are going to give up let's say I've got no issue with regards to the aspect of a wind turbine, but I need to know what I'm going to get, and it's just not good enough to say it's a commercial it's commercial sensitivity. And just to put, because I do know a bit about this, your previous caller Bonza as well, Ørsted confirmed at the presentation yesterday that it will only go ahead if the UK government subsidise their wind via contracts of difference. So that's not in debate, that's fact, and Ørsted have also actually confirmed that at the presentation. So, it's not a guaranteed thing, it's an if, just like Crogga is an if. So I just wanted to give you an update. So I'm hoping the Chief Minister is going to respond in detail on the 26th of September to Julie Edge's very good question.
OK, I appreciate you putting that in context. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Good to hear from you. Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just going back, as several people have mentioned, to the conference that's been on for the last few days, I was looking at one part of it for the Deborah Heather. She's with the Department of Tourism, which we call now, and they've come up with nothing new. It seems to be just another one to go in and talk to each other, to what we would call a captive audience. And they've got this new thing, nobody will know what it means. The Destination First Board is tackling low-hanging fruit. Well, what an insult to people who's coming over. And they should be looking higher up the tree. If one part of the government is wanting to get an extra 500,000 people, these should not be looking at what's fallen on the ground. Yeah. And, a lot of the things that she's saying that they want to cover, they want to work with, people have been telling them, and on your programme and in the papers and everything, they've been telling them for years. She highlighted things people come to expect which benefit visitor and locals alike, such as footpath maintenance and improved signage. These are things that have been in the press and all on the internet and everywhere for years.
We've been talking about the bad state of the footpaths till we're blue in the face on Mannin Line.
Exactly. And there's this one that she's getting a a serious amount of money to be dedicated, and it should be dedicated to the tourism of the Isle of Man.
I think there's also something worth pointing out, Howard, is that I appreciate these people, are professionals. They get paid a lot of money to do all this, but the Isle of Man knows all about tourism. I mean, the Isle of Man virtually invented tourism in the Victorian era. We had the first holiday camp here, and when holidays with pay started in Britain in the 1930s. We used to have hundreds of thousands. There were 30 boats a day and more coming to the Isle of Man.
That's right. And this particular lady, she's saying, going for the lower hanging fruit. She should have her eyes set on the stars and go for these things. I saw something on the television the other day. It was at just outside of Blackpool, and they had all these kites. There was 250 kites flying on the beach, and a lot of these people had come from Europe. Germans, French, Italians, and they had these magnificent kites. And what do they do here? Now, I'm a fan of the TT, the Manx Grand Prix racing, but that is not the be-all, end-all on the Isle of Man. We used to say it goes quiet for the fortnight after the TT. It's going quiet for the rest of the summer now. There don't seem to be any activity. And the other day I went down, one of our family over, the grandson was over, and went down to Fort Island. Lovely spot, and it still is. And we walked down to the fort, and fair wind, the gates have been chipped down and painted, it does look tidy. And the young fellow said to me, "What was this, Grandad?" And I looked, and there used to be a sign on the side describing what the fort was, when it was built, and why.
Right.
All that is there now is a patch of cement where it used to be. Visitors are going down there, and they're not seeing anything. Yeah. They're not following up. There seem to be the DOI and the tourist board seem to be in conflict with one another.
I think it's, as you say, worth all of those government organisations, whether it's MNH, whether it's DOI or whoever, the public notices. And everybody can point at everybody else as much as they want, but the public know when David talks about the ropey old bus stops and the bus seats. And everybody knows, and there's no point blaming each other. We have to get to the bottom of it and do something about it. And frankly, most people
they work together.
Yeah, most people on the Isle of Man understand how to treat a visitor. We know what to do. Yeah. All right, listen, I've got to go because Ian's on waiting for us. Thanks, Howard.
Well, okay, thanks.
Appreciate it. Ian's with us. Hi, Ian.
Hello, Andy. How are you doing?
Very well. Whereabouts are you?
Oh, I'm in sunny Blackburn.
Oh, right. Jolly good.
It's the sun is splitting the pavements. Now, what I wanted to talk about is it follows on from your previous caller. I mean, I'm one person that would love to come to the island, but getting there is just, even for a day trip, you could just turn up at Fleetwood 20 minutes before and get on a ferry. But you haven't got a suitable ferry that can go to these small ports anymore. The ferries you've got now, Liverpool and Heysham, well, they're no good for a day trip anymore. You can't just say, well, the weather's nice, I'll go across the Isle of Man for the day. And things like that. It seems that the island only wants these rich cruise line passengers now. And it's destroying your industry, it really is. I mean, I could fly there, but flying is a soul-destroying experience. I was at Manchester Airport a few days ago, and it's a horrible place. Massive queues and ridiculous nonsense that you have to go through these days. And then when you get to the island, of course, in my lifetime, I'm in my mid-50s, all the stuff that's vanished over the years. I mean, you must remember when you could get a guided tour around Douglas Head Lighthouse, and of course the trams that went all the way to the sea terminal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there in front of the government's eyes, but they just seem to be wanting to destroy your tourist industry.
And there used to be, I mean, where I look out of the studios here at Douglas Head, I can see a turning circle near what used to be the Palladium and Foggy's restaurant, which is now Swish Apartments. It's a turning circle because the buses used to come up here, and they don't.
The buses used to go to the north of the island as well.
And so no buses here.
The island now is unreachable for a tourist. If the weather's nice and you want to go on spec, you can't. You've got to book 24 hours in advance, don't you?
So when was the last time you came for a day trip to the Isle of Man, Ian?
For for a day trip, goodness me, 20 years ago now, I think it was, from Fleetwood. I used to use the Fleetwood service all the time. I mean, all right, it's silted up, but it's still accessible to relatively small passenger boats. 2 hours or 3 hours either side of high water. If it was timed right, you could get a smallish boat in. Nothing like the Ben McCree.
So where does everybody in the northwest go for a day out? Is it to the lakes or to Blackpool or Morecambe or where?
I mean, the previous caller mentioned about the kite festival at St Anne's there. I think that's what he was referring to. That's where people go to, but they do the Lake District, and now we've got better access to the Yorkshire Dales and things like that. We've got relatively good transport, but that just reflects on your public transport problems at the moment, doesn't it?
Okay, I appreciate your call in. Have a good day, Ian. Thanks for being with us.
Andy.
Good to hear from you. Just a quick word. I want to just draw this to your attention. It is there are laboratory confirmed sightings of the yellow-legged hornet, known as the Asian. Can you inform listeners to be aware of the Asian hornets, as they're in the UK now? 26 nests have been destroyed in the UK. They've got the capability of flying 62 miles, and it's only a matter of time before they're here as the closest point to the UK. They can fly 62 miles, and from the coast of Scotland it's only 16 miles. As to what they look like on the internet, I'm at a loss as to why DEFRA hasn't put information to warn people to help detect them. They're very aggressive and have the capacity of destroying the Manx bees if they get a foothold, says Big John on WhatsApp. Thank you, John. Good to hear from you. That's it. Stick around. Thanks to Chris on the phones. And back tomorrow with Tim Johnston, MHK, and Mark Lewin from Enterprise.
WINT